Welcome to Politics Personified, presented by the Personified Group, an IG Live series. Our guest expert is State Representative Donna McLeod. Representative McLeod has served 2 terms in House District 105 and is currently running for Congress in Georgia's 7th District. Let's get started. That's like my intro. Yay!
Yay! I'm actually downtown. One of my colleagues, representative, they call him the Dean of the House, Representative Calvin Smyre. He's actually being appointed by the President Biden to be an ambassador to Dominican Republic. So we did a farewell event tonight for him. So I'm still down here. So that's where I'm reporting from.
Yeah, serving and supporting. That's what it's about. That's absolutely what it's about. Hold on. Stay right there, Don. I'm hearing some feedback in the background. But everyone, we're getting ready to get started. I like to try to start on time. We have about 4 people joining us. Thank you for those who are tonight. This is Politics Personified, presented by the Personified Group. And our featured expert guest in all things is State Representative Donna McLeod. She is currently the state representative for House District 105, but she is running for Congresswoman in District 7 here in Georgia. And I'm just going to leave you guys with this while I check on his background. Donna has lived in District 7 for over 20 years, raised her family in the district, and serves in the district. So this is going to be very insightful. We're going to keep this thing going. So this is episode 2. So please make sure you tag your friends, tag your family, just log in. And you'll be surprised with information that you will gain from this insightful series. So I'll be right back, but please continue to log in.
Thank you all for joining.
Yes, absolutely. So thank you guys. Continue to tell your friends to join. I'm getting ready to send a message myself to a couple of people, see if they can log in tonight. And we're going to just keep it moving. All right, because it's 7:02. We're doing pretty good. We are doing pretty good. So I think we have some new viewers tonight. So I'll just repeat what's going on. So this is Politics Personified, presented by the Personified Group. And our featured expert guest is State Representative Donna McLeod. And she is 2-term state representative in Georgia District 105, and she is running for Congresswoman in Georgia's 7th District. That's a district that she lives in and has lived in for over 20 years, where she's raised her family and where she currently serves in the House. So this is very critical, very important to make sure that representation matters in Georgia's 7th District. So please stay logged in. She's going to share some insightful information. She's going to make politics personalized. She's going to simplify it for you, and then she's going to talk to you about her campaign. So please make sure to continue to stay logged in. We are about to get started. Hey, best friend joined. Hey. Hey. All right. So Donna, while we have people joining, it is just about 7:03. So we're going to get rolling because this is only a 30-minute series. So Donna, outside of what I shared, do you want to tell some of our new viewers just a little bit about you, some basic information, then we'll jump right in.
Well, so besides, being in politics, I'm also a chemical engineer. Most people do not know that. I have a consulting business that I consult for medical device companies, make sure they stay in compliance. But I'm also a mom, and the most important titles I have is that I'm a mom, and I'm also a grandmother to my grandson Grayson. He's like the life of my life, so I just love him to death. But when life gives you a curveball, you just keep on going. And so we've had some curveball last week, but I'm gonna keep pushing on. And I recently celebrated my 54th birthday.
Yes, happy birthday again. Yes.
So a lot of great things to live this long and be in this place. I'm truly grateful, and I'm truly honored to have lived this long and be able to see my grandbaby. So that's a little bit. I think every week I'll share a little something that you might not know about me, and I think that might be good. Yeah. So those are 2 things.
Yeah, we want to definitely make sure we personalize it because, I went live a couple of times before today just to say, listen, so many people have questions about politics or are afraid to ask questions, but this is the platform, guys. Right here is the platform to ask questions. Yes, Donna represents the state of Georgia, but she knows a lot of good information that can help you make that decision, no matter what state you're in, to get more involved. And when we say get more involved, get registered to vote. Go find out your voting dates and get there. Find out about early voting. Find out about absentee voting, but definitely make sure your vote and your voice matters. And so that's part of the purpose of Politics Personified is because Donna is so well versed in that area. I mean, listen, she knows her stuff, guys. I'm telling you, she really does. That even my children listen to this live series. It's like, wow, she really does know what she's talking about. So if a 10-year-old and a 13-year-old can understand, surely we can as well. We're the ones that's going to make those decisions for these future leaders. So please, again, make sure you guys stay logged in and again, tell your friends. So we're going to jump in on some basic information about politics, the legislative system. So Donna, last week, you gave us some really good nuggets, but this week we want to really touch on that nonpartisan election. You tapped on it last week, but let's dig a little deeper into that because I think a lot of people don't understand. They say, well, I'm not a Democrat. I'm not a Republican, so I don't even want to get involved. Can you talk about how there's layers to your involvement and you don't have to necessarily always pick a political side to still have a voice?
So when we talk about nonpartisan race, usually we've got one category that we usually think of in the state of Georgia as being nonpartisan, and those are your judicial branch, the judicial branch. Remember, the government is divided into three branches, right? The executive, the legislative, and the judicial branch. The executive branch, usually the most partisan of it, of course, is usually the president in the federal level. When you come to the state, you're looking at the governor, right? And there it's usually a Democrat or Republican. Then there are also executive branch at your city level. So you have a mayor, and a lot of times those are nonpartisan as well. Some cities and some cities in this state do have partisan races for mayors, but most of the time they're nonpartisan races. And so you've got the executive branch, the legislative branch, which is the branch that I serve in as a legislator, and then of course the judicial branch. In some counties, believe it or not, they still do have partisan races for those. But the idea of nonpartisan is to try to make that particular elected office, and it's difficult to see judges being elected, right? But it also wants to give the general public input into who serves on the bench. It is one of the most difficult branch actually to figure out because most of us do not spend our time in a courthouse, right?
Isn't that a good thing?
That is a great thing, but because we don't, it makes it much more difficult for us to say, is this a good judge or this a bad judge? And partisan races actually help a lot of times for people that are indecisive. So if your political leanings one way or another, when you have a partisan race, you usually say, okay, I know who I'm going to vote for because that's where my heart is. That's where I lean. But in the nonpartisan races, it gives it's a difficult time for those who are quick voters. They're not ones that study and take they're not in all day long in politics. They're not studying everything that's going on. So with the nonpartisan race, and actually this year, during the legislative session, there was a redistricting process. And in fact, in the Georgia House of Representatives, my Republican colleagues decided that they're going to turn Gwinnett County School Board in a nonpartisan race. And actually, majority of the people in Gwinnett County did not want that. They wanted it to be a partisan race. But
so now let me stop you there. So they're turning it into a nonpartisan race. So for those of us who are still trying to understand what does this partisanship mean, what does that mean for Gwinnett County as an example? Because this could happen anywhere, correct?
Yes, it could. We'd actually said, if you're going to do this to Gwinnett County, why don't you do the entire state like that? Because there are still counties. There's 159 counties in Gwinnett, 159 counties in the state of Georgia, and not all of them have nonpartisan Board of Elections. Now the demographics have changed in Gwinnett County, and so the party that's losing favor prefers it now to be nonpartisan. Then you can muddy the line in some ways, because if it's nonpartisan, then you're going to assume that the people that are running have a neutral point of view, and that's not always the case. Not even with the judges, it's not always a neutral point of view, because all of us come into politics with views. We have our opinions about what we believe in, and so this actually sometimes make it more difficult. And a lot of people think, okay, they're nonpartisan, so that means that they're just gonna be neutral. We're human beings, and so as human beings, we're going to have leanings. We're going to have opinions. We're going to have a belief system, how we were raised environmentally, family-wise, what we believe in. And so it kind of makes a difference. So usually with nonpartisan races, they usually happen in the May. So in the primaries, if you do not vote in the primary for the nonpartisan candidate, that person will not be on your November ballot.
So let's run that back again, Donna, so we can understand that.
So the judicial branch now and the school board, they will be on the ballot in the primary. In the primary ballot, they will be on the ballot. Their election ends after the primary unless they have a runoff. Okay. They will not appear on the November general ballot.
Right.
Because the nonpartisan races are only in the primaries of the I think it's every midterm. Most of your judges, there are judges in the general elections because judges serve 4 years. And so you will have some basically up for re-election in the primary, in the midterm election, and then you'll have some up in the presidential election.
Okay.
And so let me be clear. Nonpartisan doesn't mean that people don't have a lean-in. It just means that it makes it more difficult for you to figure out what their leaning is and how they will actually behave in a courtroom, or they will behave on a school board. And so you have to somehow do your own homework to really figure out, and you have to ask the right questions as to what they're. Most judges, we hope that they will look at the law, interpret the law, and in some places where they have discretion, will be reasonable in their discretion.
Absolutely. Okay. So let me clarify this. We know that here in Georgia, and Gwinnett specifically, they've changed the judges and school board to nonpartisan. When is it in the favor of constituents, of voters, to have a nonpartisan ballot? When is it beneficial?
Okay. Let me explain again. The nonpartisan ballot, when you vote in a primary, because there will be nonpartisan races, you will have a nonpartisan ballot. But that ballot will only include the judicial race and the school board race. If you go into the polling location and ask for a Democratic ballot or a Republican ballot, any of those two ballots, you will also include the school board races as well as the judicial races. If you only pull a nonpartisan race and thinking that, okay, I'm not really a political person, I just want to vote, and I don't want to be partisan, and so you pull a nonpartisan ballot, all you're going to see on that ballot is your judges and your school board. That's it. But if you want to see all the candidates, including your persons that are running for governor, if you want to see the persons that are running for your legislative branch, and you want to see the judicial branch, you pull either a Democrat or a Republican ballot, depending on your leaning, and you will have all the races based on your party ideals. Remember, in a primary election, what you're doing is actually choosing the person that's going to represent your party in the general election.
In the general election.
You get a chance to pick the person or persons that will be representing you on the ballot in November.
Okay, so that's why participating in the primary elections are so critical, because you don't really get to make you get to make a party choice in November, but you don't get to choose that individual that's representing your party. So that means, for those of you who are watching and may have questions about Republican or Democrat or Independent, if you consider yourself a Democrat, You need to make that choice, which Democratic leader you want representing you for November. If you're a Republican, you want to make that decision during the primary to make sure that you have the right representation. Representation matters. It matters, it matters, it matters. So please make sure that you get out there, especially those of you who are living here in Atlanta in the Gwinnett County area. Specifically, please make sure you get out. Primary voting starts May 24th. Early election is May 2nd. So we're going to switch gears now. And thank you, Donna, for just sharing your insightful knowledge about partisanship and when it's showcased, which is again doing the nonpartisanship, doing judge voting and school board, not board of education, but school board. So we got that broken down. We understand that, hey, even if those judges are considered nonpartisan, do your homework, do your research, ask the right questions. And the same with the school board. Ask the right questions, do your research. Remember, your kids are affected by this. So that's critical to make sure that you know who's going to be leading you. Okay, so very good. Now we're getting ready to switch to gears. We're going to make sure that we honor the woman of the half an hour, Representative McLeod, regarding her campaign. She is running for Congress in Georgia 7th District, where she lives, where she has raised her child and her grandson, and also where she serves. So I'm just going to throw out the big question first is, Donna, without dropping any names of anyone else in this race, tell us what separates you from your opponents in this congressional race for Georgia 7th District.
I mean, the fact that I live here and I have actually been doing the work in this district for over 2 decades now, literally registering over 30,000 people, making sure that we have Sunday sold to the polls voting access, making sure that we had early voting, extended early voting in this county. Those things I'm going to brag about because I've done them. This county is the most diverse county in the state of Georgia, and keeping our diversity and making sure everybody feels included, that took work. It wasn't magic. Making sure that the Korean community felt welcome, making sure that the African community felt welcome, make sure the Caribbean community felt welcome, make sure that our white communities that live here, Americans that have been here longer, feel connected to the community, making sure that our Bangladeshians, our East Asian, South Asian, Hispanic, making sure that everybody felt like they had a stake in Gwinnett County, in the 7th congressional district, felt like they had a part in it. That took work. That's not magic. But I think one of the things that most people don't know about the 2 opponents that I have is that they do not live in the 7th congressional district. Neither of my opponent actually live in the 7th congressional district. So neither one of them will be able to vote for themselves. Not one of them can vote for themselves. Their names will not appear on the ballot that they will be pulling. So at the end of the day, you want somebody who actually knows the 7th and that the 7th knows them. And I'm that person. I've been doing the work in the 7th and I love the 7th. I'm not deciding to move into 7th. If I win, I live here already. I didn't move into the 7th just to run for the 7th. I've been here all this time, and I've been serving at least I think 40% of the cities that are in the 7th, I already represent in the state house. And again, when I won my first election, I won by over 4,000 votes. In my re-election, I won by over 8,000 votes. And that means that Democrats and Republicans were voted for me because they know I'm going to do the work. And that's the kind of person you want to be representing you. I just want to let everybody know, since there's some glare on my face, I'm actually downtown because one of my colleagues is retiring from the House of Representatives because he's being appointed by President Biden to be the ambassador for the Dominican Republic. So we did a farewell thing. So I'm doing this, I guess I'm a roving interviewer right now. So, but I just wanted everybody to know why my face has got the light, because I'm sitting in the car and I'm not driving.
We appreciate you, Donna. We appreciate your authenticity. We appreciate your transparency, and most important, your knowledge base, and your hard work and service to the state of Georgia, specifically to Gwinnett County, and even more importantly to Georgia's District 7. So Again, Donna has lived in the 7th district. She served in the 7th district, and she wants to serve again. And this time she wants to serve in Congress. And so, Donna, you said you live here and representation matters. Tell me just one thing about representation that has driven you to want to represent the 7th district the way you have. I mean, you've been representing the 7th district before you were an elected official. So what does that mean for you?
So, you know, one of the things about representation is when you're elected, you're at the table for those people that you represent. So knowing who you're representing and what they need, because ultimately the government, what the government does is collect taxes from you, right? And how those taxes are used is how you fight for that money to be used on behalf of the folks that you represent. And in return, we want the folks that we represent to have service, good service, right? Because when you're in business and you make a product or a service, you're selling it, and you want to return, you want capital, you want money, you want to make a profit. Well, the government is not about a profit, right? They just collect your money. And so you are going to have to demand what that money gets used for. And you elect somebody to be that way. The current 7th congressional rep that represents it right now, she did not understand that at the end of the day, pouring concrete and asphalt is no more important than having pre-K or extended family leave. Those are things that are real, that most of us absolutely need. If we're just making a living, most of us are just making a living to get by. And if we pay our money to our government to provide us with service, we should get the services. And it's how we spend our money, on budget our money, tells us about our priorities. And if our priorities are about the people, then the people should get the best that the government can give them.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Very powerful statement. Someone said it matters when it leads to policy, not pictures on the wall. Do you want to comment on that? It matters when it leads to policy, not pictures on the wall. He made the comment a little bit earlier, but do you want to speak on that? It matters when it leads to policy, not pictures on the wall. So it sounds like he's implying maybe, putting in the work, the policies. Do you want to expound on?
Absolutely. Absolutely. Because at the end of the day, it's the policies that we actually implement that you live in. Laws are an opinion. And who's at the table of opinions is what you're going to be living by. So if my opinion is that I like white blouses and I want everybody to wear white blouses, and I sign that into law, guess what? If you're not wearing a white blouse, you're breaking the law. That seems simplified, but it really is about that, because whose opinion is at the table is the one making the law. So policies matter, because a policy actually tells us what we systematically want for everybody in our society to be living by. And you don't want some people getting more than others. I'm not saying everybody's going to be at the same level. There's no way, because none of us are equal in the way we think or do things, because we're all different. But at the end of the day, what we want is to create a society that all of us can feel like we belong in it, and that we're getting something from it. And as long as you pay income tax or sales tax, even if you don't pay income tax and you pay sales tax, you are contributing to the fiber of your city, your county, your state, and your federal government.
Absolutely. Okay, so we have a few more comments, Donna, that so one person says, hey, he talks about some of the other opponents. One is going to run on her son. The other is going to run on just being a woman. Who's going to run on policy and that representation? It sounds like you covered that, but did you want to say anything more about policy versus even just representation, how important that is?
Yes, and I'm going to say to this person, long before I was even elected, or before I was even a citizen of this country, I was doing the work. When I was working in my own consulting business, I used to come off from my client, come to the Board of Elections meeting, to sit in those meetings to make sure that we had a voice at a table, and that decisions that were being made about what we are going to do in the policy stage for voting, I was always there. I'm at the Capitol right now. I'm looking at education. I'm saying to myself, hey, you're telling me that you're fully funding public education, but guess what? The formula is from 1985. We're living in 2022. And that
Right.
policy is not working, because I know that for a fact, because the lobbyist for the county comes every year and is asking for school bus driver money, and he's asking for cafeteria money, cafeteria workers. So we know that it's not being accomplished. So once again, I'm about the policy. I'm about the work. I'm about making sure that we get a return on investment. If you understand nothing else about what I say, look at your government as getting a return on your investment. 76% of the income in the state of Georgia comes directly from income and sales tax. Another 12% comes from fees, and the last 12% comes from businesses. So majority of the taxes, 88%, is coming directly from the taxpayers. And so
Right.
if you want nothing else, demand a return on your investment into your state, because you're actually the foundation of this state and this republic and this representative democracy.
Awesome. Okay, let's see. We have another question. In your race for Congress, what will make you stand out from the others that you're running against? What will make you stand out, Donna?
Well, anyone who knows me, I'm already I stand out, and I don't think none of them could go up against me about on the work that I've done. So
Okay.
that is premier, because one of the things I want to make sure that you understand, and anyone that's listening, is that I do the work. I am not one to shy away from the work. I do the work. I get up every day, juggle my grandson getting on the bus, getting dressed, and getting down to the Capitol, and reading bills, and taking care of things, and going to committee meetings, and fighting for the people of Georgia. I do not let anything pass me. I read those bills, and I make sure I ask the questions to make sure if there's anything in those bills that could harm our taxpayers, that I am going to say, hey, no. And every time I push that green button to vote, I remember I'm not just voting for District 105. I'm voting for almost 11 million people that live in the state of Georgia.
Wow.
And when I go up to Congress, I will also look at that. When I push a button to vote in Congress, I am voting for almost 360 million people that live in the United States of America.
Wow, very powerful statement. Okay, so this kind of ties into the work that you've been putting on. So opportunity for you to brag about your policies and bills and legislation and so forth. So someone said, what policy have you passed in the state of Georgia that speaks to what you're doing in DC? Can you speak on that?
So legislatively, I've introduced legislation. We are a minority in the House. Actually, Juneteenth will be probably, hopefully, the governor will sign this bill into law. But that is one that I feel is very important, because we keep getting confused about independence in the United States of who really got independence on July 4th, 1776, versus who got independence in 1865. But I've introduced several legislation. Of course, being in the minority, don't always get the legislation to be heard in a committee. But I've been making sure that my legislation have been amplified. I've been interviewed on various news platforms to make sure that people understand that even though those legislation may not become law right now, that they're worth fighting for.
Absolutely. Okay, awesome. So someone says they want a return on their ancestors' investment. So can you speak on that, just about Juneteenth? Juneteenth, we all know, well, some of us know the story. Just share, we're going to close in a few minutes. Just share a little bit about Juneteenth and why that's so important, because we can't assume that everyone, even is familiar with Juneteenth. Can you share something?
June 19th, 1865, after there was an Emancipation Proclamation was already declared in 1863. The state of Texas ignored it, completely ignored it, and decided that they're just going to keep on keeping their human beings in bondage in Texas. Finally, on June 19th, 1865, they finally acknowledged that the Emancipation Proclamation had passed, and that the last, and I've been corrected, it probably wasn't the last human beings that were enslaved was freed, but it was the largest mass of people that was still in Texas in that were on plantation were actually set free. And so people tend to, we celebrate July the 4th almost as a collective, as if that's everybody's day of freedom. The July 4th, 1776 was the Europeans that left England. That was their independence from England. Those that were on plantation, who were enslaved, were still enslaved on July 4th, 1776.
Okay. All right. Well, thank you. Well, listen, guys, I told you we're not going to be here long. This is a 30-minute series, Politics Personified. Our expert guest is State Representative Donna McLeod. She represents Georgia.
I see Judge Fluker, and I hope Judge Fluker. She's in the judicial branch, and one that was elected in 2020. And I hope that we come on next time. We can talk a little bit more. That's the nonpartisan race that we have to understand and do our homework for. But it's a very important branch because it enforces the law that the legislators put into effect. Once we make a law, the judges are now, it's now their obligation to enforce.
They have to abide by that law. Absolutely. Yes. Okay. Awesome. So Donna, before I close, do you have any closing remarks that you want to share?
Thank you all for joining us today. And again, tell everyone we're going to be on back again next week. I'm hoping we're near sine die, so I'm going to really try to be on next Thursday. But even if I'm not on next Thursday, we will be doing Thursdays going forward. But we are at the closing, almost at the end of the session. So we've got a lot of work to do still. So I just want to let you know, thank you all for joining. And I look forward to next week's conversation. And if we're not going to do it, we'll let you all know. We'll make sure that Personified and let you guys know if we're going to do it next Thursday. But I'm hoping I will be able to.
Now, I want to make sure, guys, before I sign off, because I forgot last week, but Donna was, pulled me to the carpet. Make sure you go to her website, DonnaMcLeod.com, and donate. Even if you don't live in the state of Georgia, even if you don't live in the 7th district, vote for this beautiful soul that is taking the time out of her day to educate us on the legislative process. I don't know any other elected official, potential candidate that's taking the time to do that. So please make sure to spread the news about Politics Personified, presented by the Personified Group, with our expert guest. We have an expert guest. She has been gracefully serving in Georgia's House District for 4 years, 2 terms and 4 years. But before that, she was still doing the work. She was doing the grassroots work. Her nonprofit has been registering voters for years. They have over 30,000 voters registered because of this nonprofit, because of her passion and the passions of others connected to her. So please continue to log in every Thursday at 7 p.m. for Politics Personified. We're going to keep having our expert guest, State Representative Donna McLeod. She's running for Congress in the 7th District. Again, please go to her website, DonnaMcLeod.com.
Let me spell McLeod because it's DonnaMcLeod. MCLEOD. It's pronounced McLeod, but it's spelled MCLEOD. And I will tell you about my canine board and how magnificent my board is. We have 7 members, and out of the 7 members, all of us that was initially on that board were not elected official. Today, 5 of us are elected officials. 2 are council people. 1 is a senator, and I'm the state representative. And so am I missing somebody else? So 2 representative, and I have 1 more person. Oh, school board member.
Okay. Yeah. So
we mean what we said about being civically engaged and civically responsible. So thank you.
We appreciate it. So we appreciate you guys for joining us tonight. Again, follow the Personified Group, follow Donna for Congress. Learn more about what's going on with the legislative process. Do not be afraid. Do not be hesitant to ask questions. Hold those leaders accountable. Donna's not afraid of questions. So please make sure you bring your questions back next week. Keep asking the questions. Let's keep digging deeper. Let's keep educating ourselves and educating our community. Okay? So thank you again for logging in to Politics Personified. And we will see you guys again next week at 7 p.m. Have a good night, everyone. Thank you again, Representative McLeod.
Thank you guys. Have a great evening.
Good night.
Everybody be safe.